Next question then, no one else wants to come in. On the liabilities of fossil fuel producers in London, Assembly Member Polanski.
Thanks for your question. International Court of Justice rulings applies to the national governments, not to cities or companies. I'm pleased that this Labour government was one of the first nations to submit its nationally determined contributions ahead of COP30, committing to reduce territorial greenhouse gas emissions by 81% in 2035 compared to 1990. We can't escape the fact that our reliance on fossil fuels is a root cause of the climate crisis, and the impacts of climate change are not felt equally across continents, countries and communities. We've seen that in London and other cities around the world, existing disadvantaged groups are most at risk from heat waves and toxic air. I've been consistently clear that fossil fuel companies need to fully commit to the green transition or risk being consigned to the past. In London, I've been doing all I can to support the transition away from fossil fuels, and my Net Zero 2030 target clearly sets out this ambition. Through retrofitting our buildings, increasing renewable energy use and offering more low-carbon travel options, we're working hard to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. At the same time, this is making the way for cheaper household bills, improved air quality and new jobs in the booming green economy. Between 2015 and 2022, London emissions have reduced by 28%, and since 2000, it's a 37% reduction. London's businesses and residents want to see this transition, and I was delighted that this year London hosted the largest ever London Climate Action Week to date, making it the largest citywide climate festival in Europe. The London Pension Fund Authority has also been working to remove investments in fossil fuel companies like Shell, BP, Coal India, Imperial Oil and Novatec. Despite the work we're doing in London, climate change is also an international issue requiring international solutions. My understanding is that at the heart of the advisory opinion is the acknowledgement that nations doing the least harm, often in the global south, are often suffering the most severe consequences. As co-chair of C40s, I have a commitment to halve fossil fuel use in cities by the end of the decade, and I've ensured that 2/3 of C40's budget is dedicated to supporting climate action in the global south.
Thank you very much, and also thank you to everyone involved with Climate Action Week as well. It's always good to hear the political consensus, at least between us, is clear here, especially after some of the party conferences we heard this weekend. Fossil fuel finance has a big home currently in London. You named some of them, BP, Shell, Reliance. This is both bad for the planet, for all the reasons you've said, and it's also bad for our finance system in terms of it's built on a house of cards. We've got a government that's facing pressure from fossil fuel firms to grant new licences for oil exploration. That's the government's responsibility. In terms of your responsibility, what expectations are you putting on London corporates in terms of what you want to see them doing around fossil fuels?
Yeah, great question. So actually, I can lobby the government as well. So you know, I'm quite pleased that the government's not going to give any new licences on oil and gas. In relation to the businesses in London, not just the fossil fuel companies, we do spend a lot of time using my convening power and using the bully pulpit to explain to them what our expectations are of them. A lot of the businesses in the past who were resistant to our policies and are coming around in terms of transition. Think about the car manufacturers originally hostile to ULEZ, now doing electric and so forth. Bus manufacturers originally hostile, taxis originally hostile. So in relation to the fossil fuel companies, I'm quite clear in relation to the need for them to transition. There's three basic demands that I've got. One is I want us to be, there should be non-proliferation. Secondly, a fair phase out. And thirdly, a just transition. And so when it comes to the work they do in London, but also elsewhere, those are the sort of conversations we're having with them. And, they're leading to some change, not fast enough.
Thank you. You said no new oil and gas from the government, and you chose your wording carefully because obviously there's the Rosebank oil field. Do you have an opinion on that?
I understand the reasons why the government, for pragmatic reasons, decided to proceed with those two granted towards the tail end of the Conservative government. Again, I mentioned in answer to the previous question the dangers of retrospective changes in policy, and I can understand on a pragmatic basis, bearing in mind loss of jobs and so forth. And I'm a bit older than him, but I lived through the poor transition in the 80s with the coal mines. And what I don't want is livelihoods lost because of those particular issues. And so I can understand why the government proceeded with those already granted. But the good news is, despite the two main opposition parties being in favour of granting oil and gas licensing, wanting to repeal the Climate Change Act, but also abolish the Climate Change Committee, I'm really pleased that we're in agreement about the need to pursue this issue further and faster.
We're mostly in agreement. I do think it's extraordinary, though, to say that we'd lose jobs if we don't take the Rosebank oil field. These jobs can already, you've mentioned retrofitting, insulating homes, all the just transition jobs. We don't need the Rosebank oil field for London jobs.
In relation to, I think the government's rehearsed the two sites they've talked about in relation to Rosebank and Jackdaw. The government considered all those issues and were really concerned about those communities. Having lived through the 1980s, I can fully understand how the impact those sorts of closures have on communities.
It's problematic, though, isn't it, to sign a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, which I totally support, and your role as an envoy, an international envoy, but then not be able to say to the government that you're the mayor of that party, no, we shouldn't be extracting new oil and gas at Rosebank oil field.
My views are clear. I've said my views, but what I'm articulating is my understanding.
I don't know if they are clear, because I'm genuinely a little bit confused.
Okay. Let me rehearse them again for him again.
Sure, please.
So we can just go through this. So my views are that we should stop building out the problem by ending the expansion of oil, gas, and coal, non-proliferation.
Does that include Rosebank?
My views are
Actually, it does include
an actual
Rosebank.
plan for the winding down of existing fossil fuel production, winding down, where nations with the capacity and historical responsibility for emissions transition fastest, providing support to others around the world. And my third the view I've made previously is to fast-track the adoption of renewable energy and economic diversification away from fossil fuels so that no worker, community or country is left behind. That's why I welcome, for example, this government investing more than £230 million in warmer homes in London, an example of investing in those buildings, which is really important. Other examples of government investment I fully support in terms of electrifying our bus fleet and so forth. So I think there's no inconsistency, but I understand for pragmatic reasons why the government chose what they did.
Thank you, and thanks, Chair. I note the Mayor nodded when I said Rosebank oil field as well, so just for the record, thank you very much.
London stands at a crossroads, a global city wrestling with its responsibility in a crisis that spans every continent. For decades, fossil fuels powered its growth, but today, they threaten the very air its people breathe. Mayor Sadiq Khan and the Assembly insist the old energy order must end. London is investing in solar power, cleaner transport, and greener homes, building the foundations of a sustainable future. Emissions are falling, businesses are shifting, and public awareness is rising. Yet, deep beneath the surface, the financial heart of the city still beats to the rhythm of oil and gas. And as debates over the Rosebank oil field and new drilling continue, one truth remains clear: London cannot lead the world toward net zero while still profiting from the industries driving the crisis. So the question is, will London have the courage to cut its final ties to fossil fuels, or will it remain part of the problem it claims to fight? If you found this analysis useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so you never miss our next political update.